What's up folks, my name is Felix. Welcome back to a new video where we are going to talk about the rise and fall of the Fortune Hunters ecosystem. The Fortune Hunters ecosystem a few months ago was considered a blue chip in this space. An ecosystem with 5 projects where almost everyone believed if I jump into one of their projects I couldn't lose any money, and the mission of the team was clearly to get at least everyone back to their ROI with the sunk cost of their initial investment. And they had another mission which we can read here on the banner of the homepage: to change the future of DeFi. In this video, we are taking a look back what exactly happened to the Fortune Hunters ecosystem and why almost nobody is now talking about it anymore. Without further ado, we want to get right into it and jump over to their roadmap before we get into the history, what exactly happened with those 5 projects and which are still running. So if we take a look on their roadmap, there are a few things which aren't checked yet. So for example, they plan to release their own token, the Fortune Hunters token. They plan to release a DEX, and they also planned to release their own blockchain. And all of those ideas, those plans seem not to be realized in the near future. So let's get into the history. What exactly happened with the Fortune Hunters ecosystem? And therefore we want to start with the first project, the Cake of Fortune, which launched in around May of last year. A classic miner which launched in the miner season. Very easy to use. You just purchase some cake token, deposit them into the miner, and the miner is paying you up to 3% daily, depending on what the contract balance is doing. Almost 2 months afterwards, they released their next project, which is called the Elk of Fortune, another miner project, which is also still running with its own token, the Elk token, on the Binance Smart Chain. Then they released their flagship project, the project which made the waves, which let the ecosystem grow tremendously over the last couple of months until it completely crashed. And the project I'm talking about is the Farm of Fortune, a basic ROI debt with a 2% daily plan, where most of the people, when it launched in October, got in early and made a lot of gains. Almost a month or two afterwards, they released another ROI debt which was very similar to the Farm of Fortune but was not that popular, which was the Mischief of Fortune, with up to 1% daily ROI. And their last project was released in February this year, which is the Fortune Miner. This one is also still running. So what happened with the Farm of Fortune and the Mischief of Fortune? We're gonna start with the Farm of Fortune because this was the one which crashed first. And this whole crash had a very simple reason. It wasn't sustainable. Because they had a plan in the background to remove the funds from the contract balance, put them into some liquidity pools on, for example, PancakeSwap, and those generated rewards will be put back into the contract balance and will feed the investors. And there was also a strategy behind those ROI debts to deposit at least 50% of your earned rewards back into the system, and you should only pocket the other 50% to keep the project healthy. But of course, at some point that wasn't possible anymore. And exactly at that time, when it seemed to be too good to be true, there was a DDoS attack which kept the homepage offline for 2 to 3 days, and all the people started panicking. They pulled out their capital, of course 100% of it, no redeposits in this case. So the contract balance drained very fast. They injected a few times, but of course they were not capable to handle the storm of the investors which tried to get out their capital. And so the Farm of Fortune went down and they promised to pay refunds. And that's where the whole story began, why most of the people turned their back on the Fortune Hunters ecosystem. Because they always said their goal is to get at least everyone to their ROI. And now as the story went on, they had a lot of voice calls and the people are not getting their ROI back. They get just a decent percentage back. And of course, this caused massive trouble in the Mischief of Fortune as well. This one had the same concept as the Farm of Fortune. Of course, the daily ROI was less, but also not sustainable if people don't stick to the rules and redeposit at least 50% of their earned rewards. So the two flagship projects of the Fortune Hunters ecosystem went down, and they had a lot of trouble managing the crowd because the people, of course, were fuming in their Telegram group that their capital is back and they would probably not get their ROI. And all this caused massive trouble in the ecosystem. Of course, there are three projects which are still running, those three minor projects, where they still inject funds. But of course, this doesn't help to get rid of the FUD of the fuming investors which lost their capital in those two projects. And that's why a big ecosystem, which all the people were talking about and said the Fortune Hunters ecosystem is the only ecosystem I want to deposit my capital in, went under. And from the big growth over the ending of last year and the beginning of this year, they completely lost the favor of the crowd, the favor of the investors. And that's where we are now, a few months after the crash of those two bigger projects, which were considered blue chips in this space. But if we are taking a look at the contract balances of those miners of the Cake of Fortune, which for example had already two cycles, also the Elk of Fortune, which has a very similar picture, and of course the Fortune Miner, which is almost break even if we take a look at the deposits and withdrawals, there is still potential. And I believe those guys will come back once the dust has settled. But this of course takes time, and most of the people probably won't jump into another Fortune Hunters project if there is another public one. They're already talking about a new project for several months, the so-called Bakery of the Fortune Hunters, but they first want to complete the refunds for all the people who lost capital in the Farm of Fortune. So that's the actual state of the ecosystem, and only the future will tell if they are still capable to change the future of DeFi. Let me know down in the comment section if you were involved with one of the Fortune Hunters projects, if you lost or made gains in those, and if you liked today's video, it would be great if you can hit the like button. Thanks for watching, and let's get this crypto.